Right, this is going to be short. I just want to share a metaphor with you that I found pretty helpful in communicating needs to the people around me, but also helping them understand my experience as somebody who deals with mood disorders. I feel like this will be helpful to potentially everyone, because regardless of how healthy or unhealthy we find ourselves being, physically, mentally, etc., we all deal with energy levels. How much energy do we have at any given moment? How much energy do we have, say, for the course of a day? How do we ration that energy out? Some people seem to just have endless amounts of energy and just keep going and going and going. And some of us feel like we have very little. Dungeons and Dragons, right? The tabletop role-playing game. I'll explain only what you need to know to make sense out of this. It's about magical abilities you have, and they mostly come in two categories. One are spells, and spells use mana. Mana is like a kind of stored energy you have, and every spell you cast costs a certain amount of mana, and if you run low on mana, you have to regenerate more in one way or another before you can cast more spells. Finite abilities, right? And then there are what are called cantrips. And cantrips are minor actions. They're magical skills you develop, but they're things you can just do, and they don't really cost you any mana. You just can do them as often as you need to, because you've done it enough, you're good at it enough, the task is simple enough that you don't have to think about what it costs you to do it. You can just do it whenever. One of the things I hear from people who I share my life with is most of the time you seem so healthy and so capable, and in some ways you're particularly intelligent. You can do some things that not everyone can do. It's easy to forget that you have any mental health issues whatsoever. And I take that as a compliment, right? Like, that's good. That means I'm doing the work I need to do. It means I'm doing the disciplines, like I'm seeing success with them. Then, say I have a really bad mental health day. Sometimes it catches them off guard because they've been able to kind of forget for a time that that's periodically an issue for me. And so it can really surprise people. And sometimes the question comes up, how is it that you can do some things so well and other things that seem so basic for other people are really difficult for me on those days? It's just hard for me to do some things that people take for granted. And I feel like this metaphor is helpful because when I'm having a bad mental health day, doing something like paying attention to how orderly my environment is, things like that, it's very costly. I'm unlikely to notice it needs done to begin with, and it's hard to find the care that it takes to invest in your own well-being. But thinking about big ideas, like that's my default. I do that all the time. That costs me nothing. Working on projects that I really enjoy, that I love, mostly doesn't cost me all that much energy. But having a phone conversation, even with my dearest friends, that can cost me an awful lot of energy. And so when I seem to pull back, when I seem to stop taking care of certain things that in the long run are good for me, and in the short term are costing me energy that I just don't have. So again, one more argument for trying to make sure that I'm as well as I can be as often as possible so that I continue to do the things that keep me well in the long term, right? Like, that's ideal. But inevitably, the harder days are going to come. And it's just helpful for the people around me to realize that what for them is a cantrip, for me is a costly magical spell. And some things that are costly magical spells for them are just cantrips for me. And the fact is that we experience the gaining and spending of our personal energy in very different ways. That's really it. That's all I wanted to share. Today I'm going to be spending that energy on people I care about, because that's good and beautiful and important, and because there are days when I need them to spend energy on me, and I'm glad they're there.